Welcome to this week's episode of The Bacon Show. I'm Stefan,
Mike.
and we're here talking about things you never asked.
Nope.
But we're going to share anyway because that's just who we are.
That's right. Why not? Why
So
not?
this week's topic is something near and dear, unfortunately, to both of our hearts.
Yes.
We both kind of suffered, I guess is a good word, from a vestibular disorder in our past.
Yeah, we are both vesties, as they would
Vestie.
call them. That's what.
And we want to share all of those gory details with everyone today. Because if you've not heard of this, well, you're in for a treat. And we don't wish this on anyone, including our worst enemy.
Yes.
Because it's literally, how would you describe that, Mike?
I don't, it's so hard. This is one of the things. It's so hard to describe if you haven't experienced it. It's one of the things a lot of people who have had it talk about is even to their doctors, it's hard to describe.
They can't. Well, let's start with what a vestibular system even is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to go to handy dandy Google. The vestibular system is a sensory system that provides the leading contribution to the sense of balance and spatial orientation for the purpose of coordinating movement with balance. Thank you, Wikipedia.
So it's the system that lets you walk and move without falling down.
It's how you know where your head is in space.
Right. Yeah.
And then that coordinates to walking, balance, literally everything you do when it comes to moving.
Right.
If you don't know where your head is in space, you're like,
it's tough.
Tough would be a good word.
Yeah, like if you spin around real fast until you almost fall down, that's kind of how it feels like your vestibular system's messed up for just a little bit. And then most people just recover right away.
Right. Those lucky few.
Not so with us.
No. So tell me how yours started. What was like the leading up to scenario?
I had two kind of episodes. And the first one, I was on a date, and I was in a restaurant, walking out of the bathroom back to my table, and like the whole world just kind of flipped upside down.
Wow.
It was like something like, it was like a hammer hit my head. I didn't know like what was happening. I recovered pretty quick from that one. But then I think I kind of had an anxiety attack, probably is the best way to describe it, because I didn't know what just happened to me.
Yeah. It's like, am I dying?
So I quickly kind of finished the date and said, I'm not feeling very good. I need to go home. Right. And my future wife understood. Thank goodness.
She's so nice.
And and things worked out. And then a while later, I'm not sure how much later, maybe 6 months later, I had a very similar thing happen to me in a Target, in a big box store. Ooh. Which is where a lot of people experience symptoms that have vestibular things. And so, I mean, it was kind of like a vertigo attack followed by I don't know what's happening. And then from there, I kind of had minor dizzy symptoms, almost felt like I was going to pass out kind of feeling that just got worse and worse, to the point where if I closed my eyes, I would just fall over. I couldn't stand upright. Half of the time, if I was standing up, I felt like I needed to hold on to something to not fall over. And it was like that all the time. Driving was really difficult for me. And I had a 35-mile Los Angeles commute at the time.
Ooh.
Which was no fun. I had to figure out ways to to do that without losing my mind.
Forget about it.
Yeah. So that was kind of the origin story. And then eventually I got in to see my my primary care doctor and started to figure things out, even though I'm not quite sure I've totally figured out what I have yet. that was my experience. So it was over like 6 months, maybe a year, where it progressed for me. I had those kind of initial like symptoms that hit me really hard, and then it just kind of progressed, kind of like a wave over me. But yours was super crazy, right? When it first hit you?
Mine crashed like a tsunami. And from that moment on, I was different. So it was one night I got the Vertigo episode out of the blue. The room was spinning. And if you've never experienced this before, you know when you spin around on purpose, let's say you're on as a kid on the playground or something like that. You're in a swing, you spin around. You can do it as much as you want. When you're kids, I don't know why it feels good. When you get older, it does not feel good. Yeah. But then you can stop and kind of recalibrate and kind of get better, or you can figure out, like, you know, if you stop moving, the world seems to come back. Well, this is not like that. There's nothing you can do to make the world come back, which is very, very odd. So that's, I think, why the anxiety grows initially, or it's like that instant, slap in the face.
Yeah.
From that point on, I felt like I was falling forward, even if I was laying down on my back.
Yeah.
So imagine trying to sleep on a roller coaster. That was my life.
It's crazy.
Oh man,
it's just nuts. I was really lucky. I don't have it when I'm laying down.
Oh,
for me, it involves standing up, and when my head's moving, that's when I have issues.
I see. Oh, you're so lucky.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, my left ear, which is the ear that's affected, I had a lot of popping in that ear the next few nights, or even over the next couple weeks, which tells me there was fluid on the ear, which tells me there was an infection. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the theory around this is that viruses can infect your inner ear and damage that nerve, which then leads to this problem.
This is, I totally forgot about that, but this is what I think kind of happened to me too.
Yes.
Because right around the time that I had those episodes, I was at a conference, where people from around the world were, and I got something crazy, like some kind of really bad head cold flu thing. Mm. And after that is when it got really bad.
Yep. And now the funny thing is, I can't point to any other symptoms of a sickness, which is strange because, like you said, you had a specific time that you were like, I was sick, and then it kind of affected me.
Yeah.
I was just going through the insomnia was taking hold of me at this point before, right. And then this happened. So then it went fever pitch, but I think my immune system was weakened based on not sleeping well before this happened, and then had potentially a virus infection. Ugh. So my journey to figure out what happened is a crazy story. So you said you went to your primary care physician. What did they initially tell you? Were they able to point to anything that helped diagnose?
It took me a while to get in because of the American healthcare system. Right. So yeah. It was like months that I didn't know what was going on. It wasn't quite to the point where I was going to go to the emergency room. I thought about it a couple times, but I didn't quite do that. And then when I went to my PCP, she said, so I think you have a vestibular issue. Oh. And she said, she was really good. She said, I can either kind of send you for imaging and we can go down that route, or I can send you to rehab and you can do some neuro rehab and see if that helps. And then we'll go from there. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, what would you do?
That's always a good question.
Yeah. And she said, if I were you, I would try rehab first. And if that helps, then we probably know what it is and we'll go from there.
Okay.
And so, like, the next week, I started 2 or 3 months of neurovestibular, rehab. And that started helping somewhat.
Nice.
Yeah. What was your initial diagnosis, by the way? Mine was vestibular neuritis, I think.
It might have been that. So I went to my primary care probably maybe about a week after. It's a little foggy now, but I think it was about a week.
Okay.
I could barely function. I was laying down all the time. Anxiety through the roof. I'd never known what anxiety was before this, right?
Yeah, me too.
Like now I fully understand panic attacks are, and they're a horrible situation. I went to my primary care physician and he said, I think you had a viral infection that's damaged your inner ear nerve. So he kind of nailed it as well. I didn't believe him though, because I took the medication. He gave me medication to reduce fluid on my inner ear.
Okay.
And suggested do this, and then maybe that will help you feel better, blah blah blah. It didn't help me feel better. In fact, I just kept getting worse. And everything that you said, I have the same symptoms where you stand up, you feel like you're going to pass out. And I think that has actually more to do with the anxiety.
I think so too. Yeah.
Than the actual thing. But when the nerve brain connection and then the connection to your eyes screwed up, your life is like held hostage by this thing. And
Yes.
everything is altered. So it's not like, you just rest and you'll get over it. It's like, it takes a long time to heal.
Yes. And your brain is working overtime.
Exactly.
So if you try and do anything, it's like trying to do that plus doing calculus at the same time.
Right.
And your brain's just like, I can't handle all this.
Fatigue.
Yeah. Brain fog.
Eye strain. Brain fog.
Oh.
So were your eyes really to light?
I didn't have light sensitivity. No.
I really didn't either.
Okay.
But some people say that's also a scenario.
I
don't know. I'm not sure why.
I did. I think that I think I still do a little bit. I rely too much on my eyesight for balancing.
Yep.
I know when I was like in the middle of it, especially when I was driving, I'd have to like tell myself like trust what I see, not what I feel. Like, I'd be driving down the freeway at 80 miles an hour, keeping up with traffic, and I'd feel like I'm taking the exit to the left when I'm actually going straight the whole time. And I'd have to be like, trust what I see, stay in my lane. Stay in my lane.
No.
So crazy. I shouldn't have been driving, but
no, actually, no.
But my PT actually said that probably helped you. Pushing yourself and not just staying, sitting down or laying down all day, but actually getting out and doing this stuff probably helped. Yeah.
So after I visited my primary care physician, I mean, I think you're lucky because they kind of sent you to the rehab and moved you on your way.
Yeah.
I then felt like, well, I need answers, and I don't think my PCP gave me the right diagnosis, so I've got to go figure this out. So then I went to an ear, nose, throat doctor because I felt like it had to do with balance, dizziness, that kind of thing, but I wasn't sure what exactly was going on. So I went to an ear, nose, throat doctor who, from my first visit, told me, I don't think it's your vestibular system. You should make an appointment with a neurologist. So I'm like, oh, great. Well, let me go Google that. Oh, yeah. It looks like brain tumors can cause this.
That's always fun.
On down the line. So I'm like, Oh, okay. So at that point, now that I'm afraid of having tumors in my brain,
Right.
I'm just my mind was building bridges all over the place.
Mm.
And my anxiety started building into there was one point where I think I didn't sleep the entire night.
Oh man.
And I laid there in this fight or flight elevated panic, which at one point I was laying there and I felt my heart just the heart
Just
rate
go
just
up.
like exploded.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird feeling to have a panic attack because it was like
Mm.
an out of body experience. I
Yeah.
knew something was going on, but I knew I wasn't being chased by a lion.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I'm my body's acting like I'm about to die,
Yeah.
but I'm safe. It's insane.
Yeah.
So that's when I went to the ER
Ah,
the first time.
the first. Oh man. So
So
every time that happened to me, I had a couple of those times I was
yeah.
able to talk myself out of it.
Oh, that's
I was
yes.
like, I mean, I was close. Like my mind
Yeah.
was like, should I go? Should I not go? Should I go? Should I not go? And I was like, I'm pretty sure this is just anxiety.
Mm,
And I just gave it like just barely enough time where I
nice.
started calming down.
Yeah. I didn't follow that plan. I go up to this walk-in ER that was close to my home,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a needle phobia, and I also have a blood phobia, and I forget the name of that, but it's a some sort of vagal response where if you see blood, you have this pass out response.
Right.
Well, combined with my anxiety where it was, I go in and say, I can barely stand up. I'm having chest pains and blah, blah, blah. They're like, okay, great. Let's get you right in. There was literally one in there.
Right.
So they get me right in, put me on the bed, immediately start pumping. Like they put IVs, one in both arms. Mind you, I've never had an IV in my life.
Oh man. Yeah.
And that's not a small needle.
No.
And I'm watching this. I'm silently freaking out. The doctors, the nurses there, they hooked me up to all of the heart monitor, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I guess I reached a point where I was no longer silently freaking out. I just had a freak out. And my blood pressure dropped. And when that happens, you see the world kind of close in slowly. I didn't
Yeah.
pass out.
Okay.
I didn't pass out. But everyone, the doctor, the nurse, the horn is going off on the machine,
Right.
and they're just watching it. They're just watching it. And I'm watching them watch the machine.
Right.
And I'm like, can you help me?
Well, I mean, they're looking at you and they're thinking someone who looks like this should not. This doesn't add up.
Perhaps. Perhaps. Yes, correct. So, and again, didn't pass out, bounced back. The doctor comes back a few moments later, says, it looks like you're headed for a pacemaker. Zero diagnosis, right? No tests have come back.
No.
And so now I've got a brain tumor, a heart problem. And I don't believe my primary care physician when he says I have a vestibular issue
Right.
because his fluid reducing meds didn't help me at all.
Didn't work. Yeah.
So they run tests that I've never run before, like CT scans of my chest. They ambulance me to their sister hospital, which I've never taken a ride in an ambulance before in my life.
Right.
Have more tests. I stay in that hospital 2 nights. I felt like I was falling forward so much that I pressed my head back on the bed with such force that to touch the back of my head hurt so bad it made me want to vomit.
Oh my goodness.
Like Like I was like holding on for dear life in a way because I felt like I was falling forward.
You were grounding without even knowing about it, I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just trying
Trying to
to
cope.
exactly.
Yeah.
My brain was like, you're skydiving
Yeah.
without a parachute. And I'm like, no. So they tried to do more tests on me. My body didn't react to the drug that would reduce my heart rate enough so they could take a picture.
Mm,
And basically they couldn't find anything wrong.
right.
So instead of staying one more night, I'm like, I can't sleep. I can't touch my head. Can I just leave? They're like, okay, yeah, we'll sign you out. You've got follow up with your, follow up with the specialist. So they did their job. The hospital confirmed fine
That's good.
and follow up with the specialist. I did that 2 more times because it never got better and I never felt like I had an answer.
Right.
After the third time, the doctor came to me and said, we're gonna prescribe you some sort of anxiety medication because after they've run tests multiple times, they're like, this guy, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong.
Right.
Why are you here?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And not so oddly enough, while I was in the hospital, where's the safest place to have a life ending event?
Right.
The
The
hospital.
hospital.
My anxiety went down.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. When you
I'm
went
like,
back
okay.
home. Yeah.
Oh, back home? Oh, great.
Through the roof.
Nobody's gonna know
Right.
when I fall over and have a heart attack. I'll just
Right.
be dead, and 3 weeks later, somebody will stumble in and find
Yeah.
me. After the third hospital trip, I realized, oh yes, yeah, I think you're right. This is anxiety, but it didn't answer why
Right.
I was. So I continued down that road of the ENT, the ear, nose, throat doctor, and they sent me to vestibular rehab.
Okay.
So this is where our stories meet up again.
We're back. Yeah.
I catch up to you.
Yeah.
How did your vestibular rehab go? What was that process like for you?
So I was pretty lucky. I had two really good PTs who usually worked with patients who were much worse than I was.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
to me, I was bad because it felt, terrible
Exactly.
every day. Yeah, but they put me through like all the balance tests.
Mm-hmm.
They put you in a machine and like hook up a harness to you so you don't fall over. And I did that, and they were like, "You have great balance. Like you have better balance than most people your age." It's
Right.
like, okay, so the balance is not an issue. They put me on a treadmill, watched me walk and jog, and then they started doing exercises with me, which was a lot of shaking my head back and forth while I stared at something, up and down, throwing a ball up in the air while I was walking and like tracking it, these kinds of things, turning my head while I was walking down hallways. And after the first maybe week or two, I started to feel a little bit better. And it started to, I think it started to reteach my brain a little bit what normal was supposed to be like.
Right.
So for me, I started to see some progress kind of pretty soon. So I felt like, okay, this is what I have. I've got a vestibular neuritis. How about you?
So I did very much the same types of things. They ran several more tests for me at the ENT Balance Center. I had great physical as well.
Yeah.
They went through everything, and at the end of it, because I did, I think 12 weeks as well.
Okay. Yep.
At the end of it, and I still didn't have any answers. My balance, again, kind of like you, checked out as in the beginning, it was much more difficult for me to balance,
Right.
probably because how new all of this was.
Yeah.
I had gotten better in the sense that my balance was better,
Hmm.
but the feeling of it all never improved.
Oh, that's okay. Okay.
If that make it like, and I don't
Yeah.
know why that makes sense, and I don't know how much anxiety played into that,
Right.
but the feeling of it never improved. And this condition gets worse a couple different ways.
Hmm.
One is anxiety,
Yep.
one is lack of sleep,
Yes.
and there could be other triggers like diet or,
Diet,
things like that.
caffeine. Yeah. If I
Right.
have a coffee and I don't eat something with it, it's not good for me.
Exactly. So I had two of the most worsening things happening to me literally every day and night, which is anxiety and
And no
insomnia.
sleep. Yeah.
And so I never felt better. And it got to the point where my physical therapists were like, maybe you should, call a counselor, psychologist, because they started to get the sense that this was something that was a reaction based on maybe something going on mentally and with,
Right.
and I can understand why they would say that.
Yeah.
My my reply to that though is, on this day I was okay, although was an insomniac. I I admit,
Right.
but then the next day I was not
Was not.
okay.
Right. Yeah.
So please help me understand how, you know what I mean? And it wasn't like that night I had some big emotional, episode, event,
Right.
something that would cause some sort of,
Nothing caused. Yeah.
nothing out
Yeah.
of the normal happened. And then now I feel like I'm falling for it all the time.
That's interesting. I think this is a kind of new in vestibular rehab is also pairing it with counseling
Yes,
for certain disorders. Yeah.
because of how difficult it is to deal with everything that's going
Right.
on
Yeah.
an emotional level, you have to pair this with counseling.
Yeah.
And I went.
Yeah.
I went, and that was a struggle just to go to and, sit up for an hour and talk about how, I'm feeling getting better,
Right.
you know, because like all you want is to be better. You would give anything to be better.
Yeah.
Like I would give literally anything. I would have given anything if somebody could just take it away.
Yeah.
So I went to the neurologist. It took 6 weeks to get my brain scan.
Wow.
And all that time, suffering through all,
Not getting better.
not getting better,
Yeah.
doing the rehab. My parents, I'm very lucky to have parents who are close, who are very caring. They would drive me to all these things because driving just wasn't in the cards
Mhm.
for me. I worked from home, but work was a real challenge. Just staring at a computer
Yeah.
for any length of time was a big challenge, just because the response to your eyes, the strain on your eyes, made the whole thing just that much worse.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Uh, I had never had a brain scan in my life. They put you in the tube, the coffin, and there's all kinds of
Yeah.
crazy noise.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just surprised that I was able to do that. Uh, that checked out. I went to then do the whole cardio thing because I had to
Mm-hmm.
follow up from the hospital. They're like, go follow up with your cardiologist.
Right.
Followed up there. Oh, looks like everything's fine with
Fine.
your heart. We don't
Yeah.
see any issue. Still figure this out. Had some Finally got in to do more tests at the ENT, and they found some irregularities.
Oh
I'm
wow.
like,
Okay.
oh, okay. But what they found didn't make any sense. And of course,
Mm.
me, I'm a Google warrior. I'm gonna go look it up and
Right.
see what's gonna kill me.
Yeah.
And the problems that this pointed to were just on the bad, the whole vestibular
Oh,
disorder
okay. Right.
issue. They were kind of on the permanent side,
Mm.
on the side that only gets worse. There's some really, really tough stuff.
There's some bad, yeah, some bad things.
I joined a Facebook group that had a lot of people in the range, from
Mm.
somebody who maybe had like what you had, and then it took them 6 months, 12 months, 18 months to get better, to people who are still suffering like 12 years
Right.
after,
Yeah,
with like no end in sight.
exactly. I think most people tend to get better,
Yes,
but some people are long haulers
correct.
like me. Yay.
And it's interesting. Now that I knew I had some sort of issue
Hmm.
based on tests, I'm like, well, what do I go? Where do I go from here? And the ENT that I had been seeing, I was completely disappointed
Mm-hmm.
with, because evidently in that field, you can be specialized general stuff that's great at making money. But when somebody like me comes into the office and they don't know what to do, they don't actually say that very well, or at least mine didn't.
Right.
So instead of pointing me to the specialist that they had in their group, he points me to a neurologist, which it takes 6 weeks to get
Six
into, and
weeks
then
in,
2 more weeks to get the test
lots of
scheduled. And
tests. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
but I could have
man.
talked to a specialist. So I luckily enough, I had a friend who had a cousin who
Mm.
had a very similar problem, and he saw a specialist. And I started talking to that guy, and he gave me a referral to the doctor he went.
Okay.
I'm like, to say that this was like my last hope isn't like, it's an understatement.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like, this was my only hope.
This is,
Like,
yeah.
this is the specialist. If they can't understand who do I turn to, right?
Yeah. Totally. Oh, my goodness.
So just to wrap up this leg of my story, he takes a look at all the tests that they ran and said, "Oh yeah, well, that's the problem. Did it incorrectly, because this test, you see, you had results here, and when they didn't get results over here, that's not possible. And for what you have, rehab doesn't actually.
Mm. Right.
Here, take this medication. It increases blood flow. It's what is it? It's a beta blocker, is what they
Okay.
prescribed me,
Right.
which is used commonly for people with heart issues. That
Mm.
it allows your heart to more easily oxygenate blood, so your heart doesn't work as hard. But that also somehow lowers anxiety. And to this day, I think there's a lot of like things that they don't understand about this whole disorder and how to treat it.
A
But
huge amount. Huge amount.
prescribing things that help with yeah, prescribing things that help with anxiety is one of the go-to ways to help people,
Yep.
because all they're doing is buying time, I think, for your
Yep.
brain to then, for the neuroplasticity in the brain to take hold,
Right.
so that your brain can rebalance and understand, what the new signal levels are that come from it.
Yeah. Totally.
So in about 2 weeks, I started feeling better.
That's incredible. Oh man. So how long did it take you to get to that point, to getting those meds to start to feel better?
I don't even know. It was like, it might have been 4 months, 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
It felt like an
I
eternity.
felt, yeah, this is one of those things where it's just so many stories I see about people with vestibular issues just have such a hard time getting it diagnosed. and figuring out what is actually going on.
And it seems like this whole system is so delicate. Like if something goes out of whack, you can have symptoms like this, but it's so wide ranging and the symptoms are all kind of the same.
Yeah.
So there could be any number of things that are not right with the system, and you've got to work to figure out. Like they tested a couple times the whole crystals alignment in your ear. Did they do the same with you?
They didn't test that with me, but I tried to do some at-home maneuvers to
Yes, me
see
too.
if it would help, and it did nothing.
Exactly. Well, the test is they like tilt your head back on a table one way, and if this is the problem, then you'll have a dizzy episode right on the table.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm there and I'm laying there. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't feel any worse. They're like, okay. Because, if that's the problem, then that's kind of a quick fix.
It's a quick, easy fix. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was so excited, like maybe this is it. And then like, no.
Yeah. I got diagnosed. It was maybe 6-ish years ago. Something like that. And I think even in those 6 years, stuff has progressed so far. Like they just diagnosed me with vestibular neuritis, which I gather like almost everybody got that diagnosis.
Got it. Yeah.
6 years ago.
Like we don't know what it is. This is what you get.
Yeah. So I would love to go back to a specialist and actually have some more stuff run and see if I'm at a point where when I first had it, I was at like on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the worst. I was at like a 6 to 8 probably most of the time, and now I'm at like a 1 to 4.
Good improvement.
So it's
but
it's an
still
improvement.
not
It's
like
fine, but I'd love to cut that in half or something if I could. But it's very difficult in the American healthcare system to actually get to a specialist and pay for it.
I could confidently say this was probably the worst time of my life. Because without health, that old saying, without health you have nothing. I mean, people that have never been sick at any level kind of hear that and like, well, yeah, of course, but until you go through something like this, you really don't understand.
That's true. So how are you doing today? How far out are you, and how are you doing?
Well, one thing that I used to measure how rough this got for me, and the thing with vestibular issues, when the nerve in your inner ear and your brain, when that connection's altered, it will make your eyes do crazy things.
Yes.
And mine was so subtle that I could only see it if I looked at a specific object a certain way. So if I looked down a wall and like 10 feet down is a door frame, and I look at the side of the frame that's the furthest away, then the frame piece that's closer to me on the other side of the door would be out of focus, but I could still see it. And that frame out of focus would shake like this.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I was able to figure out a way to see how much my eyes jogged back and forth.
Right.
And this is the thing that actually makes you feel bad, is because your eyes are going kind of crazy and your brain to do with it.
Yeah. So for me, it was my eyes just weren't moving. I would move my head to look instead of actually moving my eyes. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of it for me is if I start having symptoms, I'm like, okay, move my eyes first and then move my head. If I'm changing my gaze. Yeah.
Got it. Yep.
So yeah, it's fascinating how it hits people differently.
And this is why I think it's so hard to kind of nail down in a way.
Yeah.
But you asked where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I still see some vibration.
Okay.
And because I still have challenges with sleep, that might be related to that.
Yeah.
Insomnia again is one of the things that will trigger
Yeah.
this to get worse, or you'll feel more of it.
It's incredible. If I have a bad night's sleep, I'm going to have a bad day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's, oh man, the tie there is just, it's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would say I might be a 2 or 3,
Okay.
but I forget what being a 1 felt like. So I don't,
Yeah,
I don't really know.
Yeah, I know. We don't know what normal's like anymore.
No. This is normal at this point.
Yeah. Oh man. Did you have, so I still have every now and then the kind of I'm not sure where I am in space kind of feeling.
Yes, it's subtle,
Yeah. Yeah,
but I'll
me
get
too.
that kind of like flutter. It's almost like a flutter for me
Okay,
in
yeah.
my head.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? The idea that it's like it's so hard to describe, but you
I
get this
understand
feel.
it, but
Okay,
many people might not.
I just get this feeling like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah.
But and then it goes away,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, okay, well, you just kind of ignore it at this point.
Right.
But yeah, I kind of don't feel like that's really going to go away for me, at least.
Yeah.
I think I've accepted it.
Yeah.
But at least
Me
the
too.
falling forward thing is gone.
That's good. Yeah. That's a huge thing.
So when I'm laying down, I don't feel like, I'm on a roller coaster anymore. I have some ability to sleep. Now I just have to work on all the anxiety
Yeah.
that this has created.
I think this is weird, but I think for me, I haven't seen anything online that corroborates my ideas, but I feel like pressure has something to do with it because I feel like after I'm on long haul flights, I feel better for a while.
Oh, interesting.
And I have seasonal allergies. So like we're in spring now, I have more symptoms.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I there just hasn't been enough research on any of this to figure any of this out.
exactly. Yep. And hopefully they keep going. I mean, it's something that like there's a very few number of people who really have severe, like their life is drastically altered symptoms.
Hmm.
So it's not something that gets a lot of attention, I think.
Right.
And then there seems like more and more people are getting kind of that mildish, you know,
Right.
uh, level of symptoms, and then it might take them 12 months to recover. A
Hmm.
friend of a friend also had the same situation happen to them. They describe it where they felt like they were drunk all the time.
Yeah, I've heard other people say that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I immediately sent over the doctor that I went to. I'm like, go see this guy. They're gonna prescribe this. Don't worry about going anywhere else. Like
Right.
you need a
Let's
specialist.
go straight. Yeah.
Go now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally. Oh man. And there's an organization, VEDA. I don't know if you're aware of them at all.
I have heard of that. Yeah.
Vestibular Disorders Organization or something like that. It's vestibular.org, but they have a
Hmm.
database of practitioners who are vestibular certified or whatever.
Perfect.
So
Yes.
yeah, if anybody's looking for somebody, that might be a good starting point.
Exactly. You have to see a specialist. It's really the only way to go. And Mike, you made a short film about your experience. Tell me about that.
I did, yeah. I had it in my mind for a little while that I wanted to kind of do something, and then COVID hit, and I suddenly had the time to do it. So I tried to make a short film that kind of captured the feeling of kind of having vestibular and pairing it with how I cope with it to some extent, which is by jogging, because a lot of
Mm.
my rehab was about moving my head and staring at objects. And for me, jogging kind of replicates that. So if I go out there and jog regularly, I tend to feel better. And so I tried to make like a little film that just showed that. And Yeah, maybe I'll put it in right here on YouTube. So if anybody wants to watch it, here it is. I may not look like a runner, but I run. I run for better health, stress relief, all the benefits that you get when you exercise. But my real motivation is to be less dizzy. In 2015, I picked up a bug or a virus. Whatever it was, it damaged my vestibular system. The system that keeps your inner ear, eyes, and brain working together to keep your balance and let you do things like walk without thinking or move your head and not get dizzy. That system doesn't work right for me anymore. That means most of the time, I feel dizzy, kind of like I'm in the middle of this ride. So I do exercises that look ridiculous. I stare and shake my head. It helps reteach my brain what normal is supposed to feel like. For me, running mimics those exercises. It helps me feel less dizzy. And I know if I run today, tomorrow, I might feel kind of normal. And if I don't, so yeah, I might be slow, and I may not really look like a runner, but I run.
Well, I think that's an amazing film.
Thank you.
Very well done.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you did it to just help bring awareness to this issue. If anyone's suffering from the same thing, that might give them some hope that there is actually help out there that they can get and potentially get over this issue.
Yeah, it's definitely, you can get better, at least somewhat better. It's livable.
Right.
It's livable.
Yes.
You can live with it. Even if you don't get all the way better, you can definitely live with it. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. That is going to be it for this episode. I am Mike.
And I'm Stefan.
And that's The Bacon Show.
See ya.